Chris Lee, Blake Lovell, and Max Barr here to break down and preview and even predict Alabama's road trip to Tennessee on Saturday, January the 20th. You can catch this game on ESPN2 at 1 Central. We do not have a line as we're doing this on Thursday morning, but we use an average of 3 computers to try to get us close. Those are BPI, Bart Torvik, and Ken Pomeroy. They have Tennessee is just under a 4-point favorite. So Vols expected to win this one. Before we get into our analysis, a reminder, NFL playoffs are here and our NBA season is in full swing. BetOnline has you covered with all the up-to-the-second odds, news, and scores with additional odds, lines, trends, and info on both desktop and mobile. You can access the world's best wagering information anytime. Head there today, get in on the action, see the updated odds. Remember to use the promo code BELIEVE, that's BLEAV. They get you a 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Bet online where the game starts. Well, I think we start our analysis with this one with X factors. And I think the biggest X factor in this one might be Mark Sears, who rolled his ankle in Alabama's win over Missouri, came back, played. And Max, you're the one that read the quote for us before we started this off air. They don't sounded optimistic that they'd get Mark Sears for this one, but what Mark Sears we get, I don't know. Sometimes you hurt an ankle, you play on adrenaline. Those things can swell up after games. What do we think about Mark Sears? And I emphasize think because I don't know that any of us know.
From my point of view, I think I know Blake is going to probably think he's not going to be at 100%, which is, probably true, but he did come back out in that second half and he did hit a huge 3. So he was playing, and Oates said that he took him out, rested him so that he was good to go for Saturday. So, down the stretch in that second half, they were already thinking about this game. So, Sears is probably, the Sears injury, there's probably going to be a point, maybe a point and a half baked into that Vegas, the odds, because of obviously Sears being a player of the year candidate. If he's not 100%, that's going to have an impact on this game, especially playing a defense like Tennessee. But from what I've seen and what I've read, I think he's going to be, I would say like 85, 90%. It seems good to go for me if he was able to play in that second half. That's what I'm seeing.
Yeah, I mean, again, we have no idea. We're just guessing. Right. I think he plays. You never know with an ankle. It's just one of those things that we'll at least be, I think, watching to see. But if he's himself, then obviously Alabama, scoring-wise, it's what you want going into playing a Tennessee team that just, can shut people down defensively. Ask Alabama about that because you think about last year, that game, 68-59. Think about how Alabama was just on a roll last year. Again, they're a better offensive team overall this year than they were last year. But still, we saw last year what Tennessee does to teams like Alabama and pushed Alabama as far out as they could, started their offense way further out than they wanted to, and Alabama could never get into a groove offensively. Which brings me to this stat. Alabama's not really gotten into a groove offensively in Knoxville in over 2 decades.
Woo!
Because Alabama has not scored more than 72 points in Knoxville since 2003.
Wow.
So they have played some really, really ugly games there. Now, Alabama's won some games there. I don't want to combine the two. They obviously, as I said, lost last year, 68-59, 71-63 in 2021. Alabama won that game, 71-68, 2019. 59-54 in 2017, 56-38 in 2015, 54-53 in 2013. So, just you see the trend here. Now, again, it's different. It's the Nate Oates era, Alabama scoring points, but even the recent history would tell you that these two teams have sort of played Tennessee's way in some of these games. Now, it's a little different this year because Tennessee, as we've said, has way more offensive firepower with Dalton Knecht than they've had in a long time. So this, I think, could be the year we sort of break the mold here and these two teams get up there scoring-wise. Maybe we get an 80-something type game. I wouldn't be surprised by that. but I'm just telling you that historically, Alabama's not found a way to score a lot of points in that gym. And now they play, the same kind of team this year that they played last year. But I think Alabama's better offensively than they were a year ago, just in terms of the numbers. So we'll see. We'll see. This is an interesting setup for this one.
Well, the cast of characters changed in Knoxville, but some things remain the same. Let's go back 2 years ago. The Vols were the number 3 team to end the season in Ken Pomeroy's adjusted defensive efficiency. This year, they were number 2. Last year, the Vols under Rick Barnes were number 1. Number 2, Tennessee does not lose in that building. 2 years ago, Tennessee did not lose a game in what was then known as Thompson Boling Arena. Now I think it's Food City Arena. Last year, Tennessee lost twice. Kentucky beat the Vols, and Missouri on a last second, if I remember correctly, shot or something in the final seconds beat the Vols in Knoxville. This year, the Vols are unbeaten on their home floor. No, Tennessee's lost 4 games. 2 have been away, 2 have been neutral. And of course, 3 of those 4 losses, Purdue, Kansas, North Carolina, teams that are competing for the 1 seed. So now look, Alabama has been elite. I mean, this is, if you like your matchup, strength on strength, teams that can do things to neutralize the other one, guys. I mean, you got the number 1 scoring offense in the country in terms of Ken Pomeroy's adjusted offensive efficiency versus the number 1 defense. So yes, it is strength on strength. This is one of those games I've been circling for a while. Both teams are fine on defense, or Tennessee's good on offense. Alabama's okay on defense, maybe not as bad as we make them out to be. But the matchup is going to be the side we want to see is when Alabama's got the ball and what can Tennessee stop. And I think what concerns me about Alabama is boy, those scoring numbers Blake went through are concerning. And then we've also seen Alabama is dominant as Alabama has been offensively this year. We've also seen games where they were just kind of good, but not great. And let me give you some of those. Vanderbilt, 78-75, won that one. Mississippi State, 82-74. Actually, that was a good performance considering who it was. But this is a team that away from home has not been maybe quite the same that it's been in Tuscaloosa, which that can be said of a lot of teams, Blake.
Yeah, see, I just don't know if that's fully true because even there, now look, there have been a couple games, sure, but they still put up 81 against Ohio State. They still put up 86 against Purdue. They still put up 82 against Creighton. They didn't play. Here's my point, and I've said this before. Alabama can have an off offensive game and still be better than 10 plus teams in this league. And I think that's why, to me, do we expect them to be as good offensively in this game as they have been in other games? No, because of the defensive aspect, because they're playing an elite defensive team, maybe the best defensive team in the country. We don't expect them to put up 90 something here. But Alabama's halfway good. If they're still going to have a really good chance here, I think, to at least be right there with the chance to win this game, even though it is away from home. And I've read off all the scores and how they've struggled there. I just think that is the luxury that this team has, is that even if they're not as good, but it's like, I say that, I'm like, man, there haven't been many times where they haven't been good. Like, I mean, really, if you look at it, they've been excellent for the most part, outside of just a couple games here or there. And I think it's like, it's the 3-point shooting numbers too, where it's, Creighton, they shot 18% from 3, 4 of 22. Arizona, they shot 8 of 40, 20%. Those are the things probably, because those are the only true road games outside of SEC play that we've seen, because they went and shot 40% from 3 at Vandy. They shot 36 at Mississippi State, which I think, feels higher based on having to do it against Mississippi State. And so, yeah, so I mean, it's just kind of, it's Tennessee. And we've just seen what Tennessee can do to teams, like I said, in Alabama, other teams like that, when you put them in that gym and they are on you from the start, and the environment is what it is. They can rattle you, and they have rattled so many different teams, Alabama included, over the years, to where it just you want to fully buy into the fact that Alabama is going to be able to put up points here, but it's always in the back of your mind thinking, we have seen Tennessee do this to great offensive teams over the years when Rick Barnes has been there. And so it makes for a very intriguing dynamic heading into this one.
So I dove into a little bit of the numbers. I was actually texting Blake last night about the numbers on this game. So I was wondering, I was like, when teams that play at Tennessee, they just fall off a cliff offensively, like we've been saying for the past 10 minutes. But I wanted to dive in and see what the actual numbers are. So they played 9 home games. In 7 of those 9 games, Tennessee has held opponents shooting from 3 at 27% or worse. The only 2 teams that have shot over 27% was a fluke thing with George Mason, and then Ole Miss made 6 of 16 to shoot 37%. So they have just been holding teams way below their season average. Specifically, it's 8.6% below their season average is what they're holding teams to at home. So I'm not saying, I mean, this is going to be the toughest test they have for a perimeter defense. But it just goes to show when teams play at Tennessee, more often than not, you're shooting close to 10% worse from 3 than you're averaging on season. But now on the flip side, we've seen Tennessee, besides Dalton Connect, kind of inefficient offensively, inconsistent, go through droughts and whatnot. And I think a big piece of that is their bench scoring. They have gotten close to nothing from the bench in conference play. Jordan Gainey over his past 5 games is 1 of 14 from 3. I mean, you're looking at the past few games for Tennessee on the bench, and you might get a shot or 2 from Meshack. You haven't gotten anything from Gainey, and then you might get a few points from Awaka. You're going to need some bench scoring against this Alabama. You're not going to be able to just rely on 40 from Connect every single night. So while I can see Alabama coming in and shooting a lot worse, I can also see Tennessee continuing some of their offensive inconsistency and letting a great offensive team like Alabama hang around. So I see pretty clear paths where I could be watching this game and I'm like, what? Yep, I saw that. Why didn't I pick this team? I can see it both ways. I still have no clue who I'm picking, by the way. It's just gonna come up to me at the last second.
Well, I do have a clue, so I'll start us off. I read you the record at home, more or less, that Tennessee's lost twice in that building in 2.5 years. I read you the defensive stats. And here's the thing. This is a different Tennessee team. The team's bread has been buttered on defense for years, as we have outlined. But what's Tennessee got this year? Last year, Santiago Vescovi, I guess, was their go-to guy. This year, he has taken a backseat in a big way because they have Dalton Connect, who has just lit the world on fire. I think 3 straight games, over 30 points. The Vols can stop. I mean, I say stop, and I want to clarify something that Blake said. Blake, you were right about all your offensive stuff on Alabama. It's not like they've been bad at any point, but Alabama had 5 games over 100 points against a pretty tough schedule early. They didn't get 100 on all those teams, but what they did to Liberty stood out, and they had a 98-point game and a 99-point game. Now you're seeing them come down to earth a little bit more with 70s and 80s. Point being, Alabama's gone from just unbelievable offensively to really, really good. What they're up against with the fact that if this does get to be a punch and counterpunch offensive game, Tennessee now has an answer in that regard with Dalton Connect. I'm going with the Vols at home. Blake, I'll let you go next because I know our man Blake, our man Max is trying to make up his mind.
I like to wait until the last one on this. I'd like to wait, please. So, Max, you're on the spot now. You're going to need to pick your winner here.
Are you kidding me? Oh, no. I'm rebuttaling on this one time.
I'm sorry, Max. Seniority here says that you are up next.
Okay. All right. So I think I have an idea. I said,
that's good.
I
said we're doing a prediction video.
I said last video, I'm not picking against Tennessee at the Fortress. So I'm going Alabama.
Oh my!
I'm going Alabama. Rylan Griffin is locking down Dalton Connect. You're losing in fantasy, and Alabama's winning this game, and I'm winning back the fan base. Roll Tide.
Oh dear.
I love what you just did to him. You turned the tables on him and you stole his thunder.
Yep.
Because he was setting himself up.
Two can play this game.
Auburn fans, I think you're gonna want to clip that around the 15:05 to 15:20 mark to put that out on Twitter with Max Barr yelling "Roll Tide." But let's talk about this for a second. So, it's interesting. It's always hard to pick against the team that in SEC play has been as good defensively as they have been. It really is hard to pick against that team, because when you're talking about the number 2 defensive efficiency team in the SEC right now in conference play, it's tough to pick against them, really, when you think about it, because they've just been so good on that side of the floor, and defense matters in basketball. You have to prevent the other team from scoring, right? So it's not ideal for me to pick against Alabama because they are the number 2 defensive team in the SEC right now in terms of efficiency. You know who number 4 is? That's Tennessee. So Alabama has been playing much better defense than anybody wants to give them credit for. But schedules also matter, and I think this is a tough spot for the Crimson Tide because that defensive efficiency that's been as good as it has been, it's come against some lackluster offensive teams. And I think, unfortunately for Alabama, this seems like one of those spots where some of those defensive issues could really pop up that they had earlier in the season because of the way that Tennessee is playing offensively right now with Dalton Connect and all the different options they have. It's at Thompson Boling. I don't care if it's the Food City, Food Lion, Chicken Nugget Center, whatever they're calling it these days. It's Thompson Boling Arena, and it's a tough place to play. We've seen that over the years. I do tend to think this will be higher scoring than we've seen between these two because of, again, what they both have offensively. The Mark Sears thing worries me a little bit because it is an ankle. I'm not a doctor. But I just, so that if we have to make a pick based on what we know right now on Thursday, that also gives me a little bit of a hesitation because it's like, what if, the ankle's tweaked a little bit? What if he does it again? All those things. So I'm going to pick Tennessee at home here. I just think it's a tough spot for Alabama. And in no way am I picking Tennessee for the reverse mojo pick. Like, I would never do such a thing.
I love this.
I would never do that. So I just want to make that clear that I would never pick against Alabama to give them the win. It's not something I would do here on public broadcast television. I just wouldn't do it. So Tennessee's the pick.
I like it.
This is an election year, and I'm beginning to think Blake is running for office. Between all the double talk and the very impressive filibustering skills that he did. When the courtesy would have been give Max a little time to think this through, but no, I
didn't need it.
Pointed the finger, put it off, and then he, talked his way through several minutes before he figured out what he needed to do.
Can I also tell you something else? Let me just say this. I forgot to bring up this stat. Okay, Tennessee is 12th in SEC games so far in 3-point field goal defense. So something worth noting there. Alabama shooting it very well. Tennessee is not defending the 3 as well.
Interesting.
As the defensive juggernaut Alabama has in conference play. But just worth noting. Worth noting. So this should be fun in all seriousness. Yeah. This should be a great game.
Can't wait.
And again, in no way would I ever pick against Alabama for my own interests. So
Roll Tide.
Oh boy.
The only thing more fun than the fun we had in doing this is going to be watching. I mean, this is all serious. There are matchups that you kind of circle. I've been saying Alabama, Kentucky for different reasons. This is one where it's strength on strength. Would just love to see. I don't think there's not a return trip in this one, is there? Oh yeah, there is. There is.
Yeah.
Circle that one, Chris.
Yeah.
Man,
Okay.
you gotta wait even longer
Sorry.
for that one. That's not until March. So luckily this one is on Saturday. So
This guy never forgets a thing, Max. He doesn't.
Nope. Nothing gets by.
And we're not gonna forget to wrap this one up on Sunday, although it may just be you two. But either way, we'll tell you what happened, break it down as we do every week. We pick all the games, we dissect them afterwards. Best way to get that, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button. For Blake Lovell and Max Barr, I'm Chris Lee. This is Southeastern 14, presented by BetOnline.